Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. It's True Crime with Jess Rose. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Tuesdays are my request evening. Thursdays are stories that I like to bring to you. I'm also over on the TikTok, which is Jess Rose 5472. If you'd like to join my Patreon, it's patreon.com/Jess Rose 5472. Or you could just watch. I'd appreciate that. It'd be great if you could subscribe, drop a like, but if you just want to watch, that's just as good. So thank you. Now that I've got all that out the way, tonight's story, it is unusual for me, as I don't normally cover stories that haven't, I can't say I haven't got an end as such, but haven't reached a conclusion yet. Okay. I don't normally do that. I don't like to do that, more to the point. I don't like to leave any of these cases where it's, halfway through. I'll tell you why I'm covering this one. It came on into my radar a couple of months ago, and it broke my heart. It genuinely did, this one. And I've been following it since. But I wanted to do it because I don't know how long it's going to be until we get a conclusion. And sometimes, especially with children, which this case is, it is a child, they play on my mind. And I feel like I have to share it with you. So I'm going to bring everything I have and what I know and as up to date as I've got now. And then obviously when sentencing or anything comes forward, I'll update the story at a later date. I think this is going to take a little while, this one. So I'm just going to bring to you what I've got for now. It's just such a sad case. It really is. And it's the Upsetting Isabella Loving Story. Now, I don't know if you've heard about this little girl. Like I say, it's kind of been everywhere over the past couple of months. And I think the reason it's been everywhere is because of the photo evidence that's out there. And much like little Eli Creekmore, there's been another case that I've done recently. I think when there's videos and photos of these children in the state that they're sometimes, not what they're found in, but leading up to it, it just makes it more real. And I've covered a lot of child cases, and they don't get any easier to tell, they don't get any easier to hear. But I think when there's photos as well of these little ones' lives, I just think I think it just hits a bit harder. But so we have Isabella Loving, born on the 5th of July 2019 in Nevada. It is an American story. Her mum Andrea, dad Nicholas Loving. Now siblings, little Isabella, she had an older half brother. She had 2 older sisters and a younger brother. Okay, so they're her siblings. Beautiful little girl. Oh, beautiful little girl. Very girly. Love the colour pink. Love dancing. Beautiful smile. Beautiful smile. It's hard to tell in some of the pictures, and if you see the pictures, you'll see what I mean. I think she's got dimples, but her smile is just such a cute little girl. She really is. Now, Isabella's older half brother, as I mentioned, which is Andrea's eldest son from a previous relationship. He doesn't live with the family, okay? Now, Isabella's early pictures, they show a happy, chubby, really quite a chubby little baby, pretty little girl, really is. But she just looks happy in every picture, just the biggest grin you can see. She's a very cute little girl. Now Andrea and Nicholas themselves, they run a business. It's home remodeling, and so they run this business together. So in Isabella's early years, she had a nanny. Well, the family had a nanny who would look after her. I presume the older girls will be at school. The older girls look like they're probably 3-4 years older than her. Now, I could be wrong. Actually, I could be wrong given the height difference. I'll explain why I'm questioning myself now. Okay. Now, when Isabella was 3, or around 3, her younger brother was born. Okay. And Andrea from then decided to stay home. So there was no longer a need for the nanny. All right. Now, a little bit about the couple and their home remodeling company. I've heard it on 2 sources, I believe. Just basically saying they weren't the most honest couple in the world. There's a lot of complaints about this home remodeling, taking money, not completing work, that kind of stuff. So I've heard that, but haven't got it definitively. So I'm just going to put it out there. But again, I'll say allegedly. All right. So now we're going to come to 7 a.m. on the 3rd of April 2025. And at this point, little Isabella is 5 years old. Okay. And a call to 911 is put through. And on the other end of the phone is Nicholas. Okay. And he tells the operator that his daughter has no pulse. She's got no pulse and she's unresponsive. All right. Now, when paramedics arrive, they're shown upstairs to the girl's bedroom. Okay. And Isabella is lying on the floor next to a very small mattress. Okay. But she's on the floor. She's lying on her back. She's cold to the touch and she's not breathing. Okay. Now, as paramedics begin to work on her, they notice that she's got bruises all over, head to toe, including a black eye and a gash above the other eye. Okay. She was also painfully thin. She was tiny. Hence the reason, as I just mentioned, I can't quite tell the age difference with her and her older sisters, because in some of her photos, she's so thin. She really is. Remember I said there are early photos. She's a chubby little girl. She's little chubby cheeks. She's a chubby kid. And then you see these later photos and she is very thin. Now, the paramedics tried everything, okay, but little Isabella Loving died on her bedroom floor, age 5. Okay. Now, due to the amount of injuries on a tiny body, she's tiny, okay, police are called. All right, so the police come to the house, and this is what the timeline is as far as Nicholas. This is from Nicholas's point of view. Okay. Now, when it's brought up the black eyes she's got and the bruises on her, he quite quickly says, well, she fell out of my truck and I caught her before she hit the floor. So that's the marks on her arms. And then she fell out of my truck again a few days before that, but that time she did hit the floor. That's what the gash is. And the black eye, yeah, that was another child hitting her with a toy baseball bat. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So you can see where this is going. It's very good. It's coming very quickly off his tongue, these excuses are. Okay. He also said, like, he was very quick to say she falls down the stairs a lot as well. She falls down the stairs an awful lot, this child. She's very clumsy. Me and her mum, you know, were planning on getting her checked out, but she's just so clumsy, you just wouldn't believe it. Come on. Now, police had a reason to be suspicious. Of course they did, you know. Now, he said she'd been poorly for over a week, to the point where she was not only coughing up mucus, she was coughing up blood. But him and his wife, Andrea, well, they didn't call the doctors or get her any help, because they'd been told that their child has to be ill for up to 12 days before you take them to the doctors. Your child's coughing up blood and you have to wait 12 days apparently. So then he discusses the night before. Okay, so if you remember, this is the 3rd of April 2025. So now we're going to go to the 2nd of April 2025. All right. And again, this is Andrew and Nicholas talking about the night before. Isabella was put to bed around 7:30, it said. And then about 5 o'clock in the morning, one of the girls, now from what I can gather, remember I said she's got 2 older sisters. I believe the 2 older sisters and Isabella all share a bedroom. Okay. So one of those girls, one of the older sister, comes in to Andrea and Nicholas's bedroom, and she says that Isabella's been really sick. So Andrea goes into the bedroom to check on her, but she said she seemed okay. And so she went back to bed. Right, okay. She goes, but when she woke up, like about 7 a.m., so trying to get the timeline correct, okay. Andrew had gone in to check on her again, and she wouldn't wake up. Nicholas said he woke up to Andrea losing her mind. That's what he woke up to. And then he's called the ambulance. Well, 911. Okay. So they also said they hadn't called the doctors as well with little Isabella being ill because of the bruises she had on her. So, you know, they didn't want the doctors seeing the bruises because there had been an open CPS case on them. And this had been brought, well, the reports had been brought in, I believe, by, do you remember I said Andrea had an older son, which would be Isabella's half-brother, that didn't live with them? Well, his paternal aunt, which would be Andrea's ex's sister, I would presume, she'd made a report to CPS. CPS apparently had been out, everything was fine, supposedly, and they'd recently closed the case. When I explain why I'm so annoyed, you will need to go away and look for yourself, but I think once you see the pictures I'm referring to, you'll see why I'm so angry, okay? So, yeah, that was why they didn't want to. They weren't so keen on getting the doctors involved because of the bruises and because of CPS just recently closing the case. So Andrew and Nicholas are brought to the station. Of course they are, right? Now, Nicholas, he begins saying he doesn't quite get what happened. He works a lot. He doesn't really know. He went to bed about 9 o'clock the night before. Next thing he knows, he's been woken up to Andrea losing her mind. She's screaming that something's happened to Isabella and Isabella's not breathing. He said, and that's all he knows. So that's Nicholas at first, okay? But it doesn't take him long to change that story. All right? So the timeline begins to change now. And he says, well, okay, we didn't find her at 7 o'clock in the morning, as I said. We actually found her at 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock. But the reason, like, it took me 5 hours to call you is because I was consoling my wife. But what? You maybe could have saved her. I mean, there's a lot still got to come out about this case. But I haven't heard it suggested that that wouldn't have helped. Okay? So 5 hours. 5 hours these two wait to phone 911. Alright? And he says, like I say, he said this was because he was consoling Andrea. Consoling her why? You could have got your child out, no? And then he begins to admit, well, also, sometimes little Isabella, she sleeps in a box in the corner of the room. And it's a 5x5. It can only be called a cage that they lock this beautiful little girl in as punishment, apparently, in the corner of the girl's bedroom. That's where Isabella would spend a lot of her time for punishment. Now, Andrea, well, she's been questioned. Now, she discusses the cage as well, and she also says it was a punishment for her. You know, in case, because if she robbed if she robbed cookies out the cupboard, she'd be locked in her cage. And then Andrea says something to the police that I just thought, oh, you're just rotten. She says, I should go to jail for not helping her, but Nick should go to jail for killing her. She also says that Nick had wanted to bury little Isabella in the garden and then for them all to pack up and leave to go to Virginia where his parents lived. That's what she says was the plan. And she said she didn't want to do that. And then she said she was going to leave Isabella in the bedroom, but she would rot, so she didn't want to do that either. Nicholas basically said he didn't bring up the discussion of burying little Isabella, but he says it was Andrea who'd wanted to run. I mean, now, Andrew went back to the 30th of March of 2025, okay, so a few days previous. And she says that Nicholas, had kicked Isabella in the groin, full force. He's a grown man. He's a man. She's a 5-year-old little girl. And she's not the size of, if you've got an image of a 5-year-old, no, she's not that. 2, maybe, if you look at the photos, she could pass as a 2-year-old. Kicks her full force in the groin, and then he drags her upstairs. And Andrea then heard shouting, like he was screaming at her, and then she heard a thud or a bang against the wall. She didn't do anything, though. She didn't do anything. So that's obviously why she said I should go to jail for not helping her. But then the older sisters are questioned. Okay? Timeline changes again. Because the older sisters say that at midnight, so 7 hours, not 5 hours, 7 hours before the call's made, they're woken up and brought downstairs to be told their little sister is dead. And they're going to be leaving. They're going to be moving. That's what the girls said. So, obviously, I would believe them over everything, because there's not even a similarity. It's not even a similarity to what the parents said to what the girls have said. Different time, different circumstance, you know, and they're already claiming that Isabella's already dead. Okay. Now, Nicholas is charged with child abuse causing serious bodily harm or death, and is held on a $10 million bond. Okay. Now, that's ongoing. As I mentioned at the beginning, it is ongoing. I don't have a sentence. I don't have a verdict. I don't have anything for you at the moment. But the autopsy had come in. Now, the manner of death has been put down as homicide, I believe. And the cause of death is bacterial pneumonia, multiple blunt force trauma, malnutrition, dehydration, and medical neglect. That's the cause of death. Normally, cause of death is blunt force trauma, starvation. It's not all of them. Okay. Now, there was, as I mentioned, there was injuries to this little one's face, and there was 10 injuries in all just to her face. Her face is tiny. Okay, it's tiny. And obviously, as I mentioned, the gash over her other eye. There was oral trauma, obviously, to her mouth. She had bruises to her pelvis, her hips, her biceps, her genitals, her behind. Everything was bruised. There was lacerations on her arms, her legs, her torso. Just, this poor girl was just black and blue. She just was. It was just, it's just such a shame. But Andrea, even though Nicholas had been charged, she wasn't. You know, the kids had been taken into care by CPS. So the 2 older girls and the younger brother. Andrea went back to the house for a little while. You know, her child's been murdered and the kids been taken. But in July of 2025, so only a couple of months ago, she was also charged, same charge as Nicholas, with child abuse causing substantial bodily harm or death. That's her charge, okay? Again, I don't have a sentence in yet, just yet. Now, the reason she was finally brought in, because there was uproar. Again, the paternal aunt to Andrea's eldest son, who would be Isabella's half-brother, that auntie who'd reported them to CPS because of it, you know, due to Isabella. I don't know. I don't know what her ins and outs are with the family. I don't know that 100%. A lot of it's alleged, but she kicked off. She was fuming. She says, "You've got to arrest this woman." Police started looking into her, and they started to find text messages that Andrea had sent, a search history. Again, all of this will come out at the trial, but some of her search history was: signs my child is dying. Dark blood on boil when popping. How long can you go without food? My 5-year-old is peeing blood. That was a search history. You know, there was text messages where in there she was saying that she only would feed Isabella 1 piece of bread a day. So I presume while the police were investigating all this, obviously found the search history, the text message, the phones, everything else. That's when she was brought in and charged. Okay. Now, Nicholas, you might be like, okay, how's this happened? What's going on? You know, are the older 2 girls okay? Yes, I believe so. I believe so. Youngest little boy, I believe he was okay too. Is it a scapegoat kind of case? Possibly. Okay, a lot of questions up in the air. But what we are sure about is that in 2014, because you might be like, well, why doesn't the oldest boy live with them? You know, they had a business, they had a home, they had other children, they were married. Why is the eldest child? I know he wasn't Nicholas's son, but what's happened there? Well, when the eldest child was 2, so at that point Andrea's only child, I believe, and she meets Nicholas. Well, that boy was abused by Nicholas. Okay, 2 years of age. And Nicholas, he pled guilty to that child abuse. And what he'd done, he broke this child's arm and he'd left a bite mark or bite marks on this child, 2-year-old by the way. So severe, these bite marks, but they're embedded in this child's skin, adult bite marks. And he broke his arm. Okay, now he pleads guilty to that. And you might be like, well, how long did he get? And then you're working out the timeline because this is only 2014. Look, what's going on? What's happening? Well, he was sentenced to 5 years probation. That's what he got for breaking a 2-year-old's arm. 5 years probation. And then the child, now I'm presuming this son was removed. I don't know, has he gone to his paternal family? Again, I'm not too sure. But Andrea marries Nicholas after this. So that's her only child at this point. This is her baby boy. A man comes into her life and breaks this baby boy's arm. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, I tell you what, you take my baby and I'll marry him. How about that? And that's what she does. That's where it goes. Okay. So yeah, that was Nicholas. So it's not like she didn't have a warning, but it was said, especially by the nanny that I mentioned earlier, that Isabella was well cared for, and while she was there before the baby boy was born. Now apparently this baby boy was everything. All Nicholas wanted was a boy. So all he wanted, he's had 3 girls. He really wanted a boy. Now he could have claimed the eldest child, maybe of his own. I don't know where the dad comes into play. Was that why he didn't like the eldest boy? I don't know. There's a lot of questions with that one. But no one knows at the moment is why Isabella was turned on. No one knows why. I mean, don't we have these cases all the time where it's just one child is singled out? I'll say alleged because I've also heard that there was perhaps an affair and Isabella might not have been Nicholas's, but that again only saw, I think, on 2 sources, and I'm gonna say alleged because I don't know if that's true or not, so I'm just gonna throw that out there as well, but I don't know how true that is. It doesn't give any reason, it doesn't give any justification for what he did, but that's been thrown out there as a possible excuse. Okay. Now, the reason I've brought this case to you, because as you can hear, there's a lot of alleged, there's a lot I'm not sure, there's a lot I don't know what's happening. There is a lot of that. And the reason I've brought this story to you today is the photos of this little girl. If you go online and put in Isabella Loving, and you go into the images, I think Google has a couple, but if you look at the news reports online, you can really see the photos I'm referring to here. And you wouldn't recognize her. She looks really old and really young all in one go. There's one of the pictures, she's got look at huge green bruise that covers the majority of her little forehead. And as I've said, she was a chubby baby, and throughout these photos she just gets more and more gaunt. You're like watching it as it goes along. There's a picture where her hair is actually starting to thinner. I've heard they cut it. To me, I'm not too sure if it's been cut or it's been pulled, because it's patchy, and she's got this beautiful head of blonde hair, and the next photo you see there's hardly any left. And in that photo with the thinning hair, she's got a dark big bruise in her hairline, and like I say, because she's so fair, it just stands out. Oh, it's just awful. Then there's another picture with her sisters, and this was why I was saying earlier on, I don't know of the age difference. And I say why, because the sisters look so much bigger than her. But when you work out the timeline, they can't have been that much older than her. I'd say a couple of years at most, but they just look so much taller than her. And in this photo, they're so well presented, these girls are. They're very healthy looking. Clothes all look pristine, and, you know, they're very well turned out. And in the middle is little Isabella. And she's obviously got old clothes on. Old, oversized clothes on. And she still looks tiny. Trainers that are way too big for her, they've obviously been handed down to her, but they don't fit. And she's so thin in the photo. And to look at this little girl next to these other two girls who are her sisters, it's just like, oh my God, what was you doing to this child? There's a picture of her at the dinner table looking so sad. She just looks so sad. And there's another picture of her with practically newborn length hair. Like, by this point, there's hardly anything left on the child's head. Looking very sad again. And then there's a picture of her at Disneyland. They took her. You wouldn't believe that they took this child out to Disneyland. Now, she's in a pushchair. She's 5 years old. But she's so gaunt. She's so tiny. And she's in this pushchair in these very grubby looking clothes. Whereas everyone else looked immaculate. Oh, Andrea, she looks positively well fed. Oh, she looks like she hasn't missed a meal ever. You know, Nicholas just looks sleazy. You know, the girls, her old sister's very cute. You know, the younger brother, you know, the other three kids, they just look healthy. No, I don't know what they've been put through. We don't know yet. You know, even if they hadn't physically experienced what Isabella had experienced. They were there. So it is said as well that the two sisters who shared the bedroom with Isabella, they had queen-size beds each. Queen-size beds each. And this poor child is on a crib-size mattress in a cage in this bedroom. I mean, and she'd have known what it was like to be treated well, because this wasn't her life all along. She, up until her brother had come along, she'd been treated the same apparently, and then all of a sudden, well, gradually, but they were starving her. They weren't letting her drink. Her hair, I'm still very questionable about what was going on with her hair. It genuinely looks like it's been pulled out. And you just look, like I say, if you look at the pictures, it's very upsetting to look at the pictures, to see this, the state of this little girl. And I think I mentioned, yeah, she was being fed 1 slice of bread a day. That's what she was being fed. Just, honestly, it was the photos that did it for me, and that made me want to bring the story to you. As I've said, I don't know any sentences. I have no verdicts. I don't know where this is going to go. I mean, he's already met a judge once that let him off with probation. I would like to think, given how much coverage this case has been given, and also how disgusting the case is, that he's not, hopefully he's not going to see the light of day again, and neither should she. I hope she gets exactly the same, because not only is she not just a bystander who didn't do anything, from what we can tell, she was very much involved. I mean, Nicholas even says it wasn't really him who used to lock Isabella in her cage. It was Andrew who used to do it. So, you know, this innocent fawn in the woods, it's not going to wash. At least I hope it won't. But, yeah, obviously, once the trial comes about and we've got a verdict and a sentence and everything else, I will do an update. And obviously, it's all very new. Which is another reason why I normally don't do these cases so early. I normally don't, because things change, details change. That's why I've had to say alleged a lot in this. So I will do an update. Not as it comes, because of course things can change again, but once I've got all the information in the future, I'll then do a full update for you. But yeah, I just wanted to, I don't know what it is. It's just this little girl's face. It's just, and the one thing about her, bar I think in 2 photos that I saw of her, she's smiling in the rest. And she's so gaunt, but she's still smiling. It reminds me a little bit of Victoria Climbier or her photos, regardless of what was going on. She was still smiling. And it's just so sad to see. It really is. But that's the Upsetting Isabella Loving Story. Now, as I've said, I will do an update as and when I can. But yeah, I just wanted to share it with you. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Tuesdays being my request evening, Thursdays the stories that I like to bring to you. Now, normally I would have done this on Thursday, but I have had it mentioned to me, and I did want to do it myself, to be honest, so it's kind of my own request, if you like. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I genuinely do appreciate it, and I'll be back on Thursday. So thank you so much again. Thank you.